The big Thanksgiving Day holiday is just hours away, and we're seeing a soaking rain heading out of the Ohio Valley and moving into the northern mid Atlantic states to southern New England, upstate New York, and up into northern New England. They're going to see a decent shot of snow out of this. Lake effect snow warnings for multiple feet of snow. That is a quotation for parts of western New York as well as north central New York. Very cold weather is coming for the weekend and for probably all of next week, and perhaps even a bit beyond that. So we have much to discuss and so little time, but we'll do it as best we can on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which you can support by copying on Amazon using our referral link at the top of the chat board or on the descriptor to this podcast. Doesn't cost you an extra dime. You just use the link, search for your stuff, buy it. Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin for sending you there, and we appreciate the support that you give us here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, because we can do that or we can run commercials all night. So we're not running commercials all night. So you're waiting for rain. I'm waiting for rain because I've got some coming here too. You're waiting for cold. I'm waiting for cold because I got cold here coming here too. Uh, the lake effect thing is intriguing because we mentioned last night. It's not often when they put up winter storm watches 4 days before the event starts, which they did yesterday. For parts of north central New York and for western and southwestern New York, they went to a lake effect snow warning. And in the statement, I don't know if you got to read it, but I was looking to see what they were talking about. They used I've never seen them use this phrase, multiple feet multiple feet of accumulation.
Oh, well, let me.
I mean, a
If you,
centipede has multiple feet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you have lived up there for a long time, you already know what the story is going to be, and you're used to it probably by now. So that's the story, folks. From Friday, I believe that the valid time starts on Friday morning and goes right straight on through Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday. So
Yeah.
what are you going
No, it's a long duration event.
to? Yeah.
And I'm sure that we're going to be hearing about those, I don't want to call them odd spots, but the areas that get hammered in situations like this, like Tug Hill in upstate New York and Watertown, and also the folks in southwestern New York and in parts of northwest PA, all going to be part of all of this. And with it, we're getting also a shot of the first of several shots of cold air, and really it's been years since we've had uh, a December where we're going to be starting it because December's here on Sunday, December 1st. That we're going to start off the month of December like this. I mean, this has not happened in a long time.
And you know what happens when the month begins on a Sunday, correct?
No,
If the month begins on a Sunday, inevitably, ultimately, that month will have a Friday the 13th.
oh, is that how that works?
That's how it works.
Oh, that's poker night. That's poker night. We had to reschedule.
Ah,
And we rescheduled. We've rescheduled it for Friday the 13th. So
okay.
I'll have to bear that in mind.
Yeah.
Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and to those of you who are not on the chat board but are watching in the background, or maybe you're new to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Hope your Thanksgiving holiday is great. If you have to travel, travel safely. Don't be in a rush, especially if you're driving in areas that have adverse weather. Actually, most of the country is okay. We've got this one weather system. It's not a major storm or anything like that. That's going to be creating inconveniences, but I don't think it's going to be anything debilitating for anybody. Uh, but most of the country is actually going to be okay tomorrow.
Uh, Tomorrow should be an interesting day to watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade because, as I mentioned in a special weather statement that I posted on Facebook, Joe, we're not expecting a huge amount of rain here. We're expecting about, at least I'm expecting, about three-quarters of an inch of rain. And again, that's not, I mean, we just had about a week ago over 2 and 3 inches. The
Right.
thing is that most of that three-quarters of an inch is going to come between 7 in the morning tomorrow and 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, which means that the rain is going to come down steadily and at times rather heavily. And if you're watching the parade tomorrow in New York, everybody who is either watching it live and in person or participating in it is going to get soaked. No question about that. So, uh, unless Santa decides that he's going to uh, have a I don't know, something over his head on his sleigh tomorrow. That red suit is going to be pretty wet tomorrow by the time he makes it all the way down to Herald Square.
By the way, the chat board, folks, we'll have a couple of things. Ken Musillo and David Fuller, thanks both of you for hitting super chat. Um, David Fuller, it's probably doubtful that you'll see any kind of snow shower activity from what'll be going on over the Great Lakes. I don't think it's going to be, I don't see it being that unstable, but no matter. Happy Thanksgiving to both of you, and thanks for hitting the tip jar. And you're getting a lecture, Joe, from Cecilia Hernandez. I've hesitated to ask you about this, but she's talking with Dennis Cassia on the chat board, and she says, um, "Dennis, he should have put up the decorations by now. We've had plenty of mild days. A meteorologist should have known better."
Um, to that
Now,
comment,
answer nice.
well,
Quiet John,
I will say that I wanted to do this a few weeks ago when we had temperatures in the pleasant 70s to around 80, and I was vetoed by the executive producer who said she didn't want those lights up or any of those decorations up so early. And I said, yeah, you are waiting until it gets cold, windy, frigidly cold, and
right?
indeed, what are we looking at now, Joe?
Maybe a little snow cover and ice on the ground for where you have to put the ladder.
Yeah, you know,
The plot thickens.
what what can I say?
I know you can't say anything.
I have no power in this house whatsoever.
No, you have to be like Quiet John, who has hit the chat, who's hit generously again hit the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Quiet John. Most
Oh my.
appreciated, and a happy Thanksgiving to you.
Maybe I'll have Quiet John talk with my wife.
Oh yes. Then you better hit his tip jar, if that's the case. Let's roll along here and take a look at what's happening. We've got some watches and we've got warnings and advisories up, I should say, for a few counties in north central Pennsylvania, much of southern New York to about the Catskills, and then northward from there. Then they become winter storm warnings over several counties north of I-90, going into the Northway. And then going to Vermont, it's mostly winter storm warnings, except the northernmost counties, which are under an advisory. In New Hampshire, it's mostly winter storm warnings, except the extreme northern counties and a few of the extreme southern counties, that those are under winter weather advisories. And in Maine, the coastal counties have nothing. Just inland of the coastal counties, we have winter weather advisories, and then just a little further inland from that, much of the state under winter storm warnings. And then we have the lake effect snow warnings for north central New York, the three counties in north central New York, which includes Watertown, Pulaski. This is all just north of Syracuse, by the way. And in western and from just south of Buffalo, I think Buffalo's on the edge of this. Let me make sure. No, Buffalo is in the. No, that is that a different color? What is that? Okay, so Buffalo is in a winter weather advisory, but just the county just south of Buffalo, I mean, literally a stone's throw from Buffalo southward and going through southwest New York, including Jamestown. Um, and those are under winter lake effect snow warnings. And then it goes back to advisories in northwest PA and for one county in Northeast Ohio. We have, I think, this is light blue. Are those avalanche? Yes, avalanche warnings uh, in, um, in some of the counties in central Colorado. But other than that, we don't have any other. We have some adverse weather going on, but not enough to warrant advisories and warnings. And here's the satellite loop tonight. And there's this stream of moisture, Joe, from the Baja Peninsula northeastward through the Central Plains and onto the Ohio Valley. That's all. That's moving eastward at a fairly good clip. The rain is not that far away.
And I said, it's a funny thing from what I was able to interpret from uh, the short these short-term models from this morning. There's going to be like a little arm of precipitation that may move ahead of the main batch of rain. That could get in parts of our area here in the lower Hudson Valley. Could get in as early as 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. But after about 3 a.m., it's going to start to rain, and once it does, it'll be light and steady, and then it's going to really begin to ramp up, as I said, after 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And again, the heaviest rainfall appears to me during the 6 hour period from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then, actually, Joe, after about 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, I think most people will be sitting down and having their big Thanksgiving meal by what, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon up here. The rain will be tapering off significantly and may very well be over said and done by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we may be getting into a
Might be
clearing
done. It might be.
sunny
It,
zone.
it might be done a little sooner than that.
Yeah, it's so that there it's going to be a quick but hard hitting batch of rain. Again, it's not going to be a whole. It's going to be a tremendous amount. It's not going to lead to flooding concerns. But the thing is, a lot of people tomorrow, wherever they're going to grandma's house or wherever to have their Thanksgiving meal, and usually they head out, first thing in the morning or during the morning to early afternoon. You're going to be driving. You're going to those windshield wipers are going to be going like that, and who knows, for a short time they may even be going like this, because that's going to be the kind of a day that we're looking at tomorrow. I know a lot of people who wanted to see snow tomorrow. Oh, it's maybe we'll have a Thanksgiving snow. Not in the
That
tri-state
was
area.
that was
Not in
never
the
gonna
tri-state.
that was never
No.
gonna happen.
Uh,
That
I
that was just nonsense.
I mentioned wet flakes getting involved in western Orange County, and also mixing in or maybe starting off as wet snow in western Ulster County and in Sullivan County. But even up there,
Yeah,
uh, it's going to change right over. So you're
yeah.
not even going to get any decent amount of accumulation. So what can I say? It's not going to be one of your nicer Thanksgiving days tomorrow.
No, and you got to go. There's going to be some elevation issues when you get further north. And obviously, if you go up into northern New England and northern New York, you're going to be, you'll see snow there. But no, this is not going to be. This is not problematic, and it really wasn't ever going to be problematic given how things were evolving. We'll put it like that. Let's check out the radar tonight because it's actually pretty loaded. We've got some precip already into Pennsylvania. I'm thinking that much of this stuff is aloft or very light. And then you start to see it pick up in intensity in the darker greens when you go back into Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. Chicago's out of it now, and Milwaukee's not even close. But we do have some heavier rain on the radar showing up near St. Louis. There's some blotchy showers across Kentucky into West Virginia, and also an area that extends down into Tennessee. Not seeing a whole lot further south, even though there is severe weather risk being indicated by the Storm Prediction Center, which we'll get to momentarily. Some light snows in parts of the Dakotas and in Montana. Some of that cold air starting to feed down, and it's going to gradually spread throughout much of the U.S. east of the Rockies. Storm Prediction Center tonight has a marginal risk in eastern Mississippi into Alabama, and also a small area down in the Florida Panhandle into southwest Georgia. Both those areas have 2% tornado risks that go with it. And then tomorrow, it's a marginal risk that WPC, SPC has actually shifted a little bit more south and east. So it covers central and south Georgia, down to the northern Florida, a small portion of southeast Louisiana, and both the Carolinas and a little sliver of southeast Virginia, and that whole stretch up from the Florida Panhandle to the Virginia state line is under a little area there of it's not so little area where there's a 2% tornado risk, but we're talking isolated severe thunderstorms here. Uh, WPC's rainfall or liquid precip 1/2 to 3/4 seems reasonable. Maybe because we had a little bit of upside the other day, maybe this one will produce a little bit of upside. We'll see, but I think you'd max out at an inch if if the precip really bands together a bit. You can see the stripes of purple in southwestern New York into northeast Ohio and also in north central New York. So those are going to be, indicating 2 inches or more of liquid here. So, we're talking at least a couple of feet of snow. And the way it usually works with lake effect, when they try to forecast it this way, it usually winds up being underdone anyway. Uh, Precip also lake effect in northern Michigan and on the upper peninsula of Michigan. Much of the west and in the plains, um, very dry over the next 7 days. Really, not a whole lot going on. And by the way, if you look what's happening in the west, from the western plains to the west coast, with so little precip, it kind of tells you here that uh, we're not getting weather systems to come in along the southern portion of the jet stream pattern, which is going to lead us to get into a cold and probably mostly dry pattern beginning this weekend and going through next week and a little bit beyond that. It's just the way everything is set up. If you don't have systems coming in off the Pacific that are far enough south and want to take a southern stream track, you're going to have an pretty hard time trying to get precipitation into the eastern part of the United States. So we get this out of the way with this weather system. And we were talking yesterday, Joe. This cold air spreads out. One sprawling high comes down over the weekend. Then there's another reinforcement that comes in for Monday and Tuesday, and that high drops down into Tennessee and Kentucky. Uh, then it looks like we have a couple of systems. See, this is what I was talking about yesterday, and you were talking about it too. Uh, if there's going to be snow, if we're going to get any snow while we have all this cold air, it's going to have to come from something in that northwest flow that comes down southeast. These little diver systems that are going to try and come southward and bring shots of precipitation. There's one late Wednesday into early Thursday. There's another one that follows, if the GFS is right, tracks further south, and this would be for maybe Friday night to Saturday. But it's got to be just right, and I'm not so sure whether the models are correct in how they're depicting these things.
No, it's too early. These kind of clipper systems move so rapidly, so fast, and if you hang your hat on a model or a prog for a system that's coming our way, possibly 5, 6, 7 days down the road, you're going to be wrong. You're going to be wrong because again, because of the rapid movement, it could come in, 6 hours earlier, 6 hours later, and the exact track too tends to be in jeopardy. If you try to go beyond, let's say, a few days, you really can't tell. The only thing, as I said yesterday, is that you can speculate that since we're in this uh, cold, fast flow, that there is that chance that you could indeed, if everything works in your favor, if everything is just perfectly aligned with the gods and with the
Yeah,
stars, you could get your significant snowfall. As I said, one famous case was in March of 1956. It was so very cold in the Northeast, and here came one of these little innocuous clipper storms, which normally would bring nothing, but it bumped into that big mass of cold air, and the cold air mass said, "You ain't going anywhere." So the little clipper system said, "Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Instead of going straight across the Northeast, I'm going to go south." And it took a track across Virginia and North Carolina to the mid Atlantic coast, got its feet wet over the relatively mild Atlantic Ocean, blew up into a significantly strong system. Then it turned northeast into the cold air, and it brought, well, I think it brought something like 1 or 2 feet of snow to New York up to Boston. And believe if you look at the records, there was actually a second system that followed behind that one 2 or 3 days later and brought another round of heavy snow. Um,
nice.
Isaac Asimov, in his autobiography, Enjoy Well Spent. I think that was the name of the autobiography. It was a 2 volume autobiography. He wrote he was living in Newton, Massachusetts, and he said that after the second, he called it the double whammo storm. He said after the second storm, there was 4 feet of snow on my driveway. And he said, I do not exaggerate. I measured it. So I don't know if he was measuring a drift or a giant drift but it just goes to show you that sometimes you don't need those systems coming out of the Gulf of Mexico to get a heavy snowfall. Sometimes even the most innocuous looking, so meager in moisture, little clipper systems can sometimes do a real number on you. And who knows? Who's to say, Joe, what might
Well,
be in the next week or two?
here's the thing. Yeah, I just going to bring up the teleconnections really quick here. So, the NAO, which is actually slightly negative right now and is going to be taking a slight dip around the 1st of December, actually goes a little bit positive after that. Not in a big way, just slightly positive. And the issue with these divers is if you want them to do something in the eastern part of the United States, you got to have a big enough ridge in the west. So you were looking at the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, which you want to see it in a positive mode. And it is. It's actually going positive over the weekend, and it gets to about one standard deviation positive, and then it's like between 0.5. It's not that strong. You need that PNA to try to shoot up at least toward that 2 standard deviation area, uh, and a stronger ridge to show up in the west. Because if you get a stronger ridge, a strong ridge in the west, that gives more room for the system to dive into the eastern part of the United States. You get more amplitude in the trough in the east, and when you look at the upper air, that's really the issue here. It's not that things are not in the right place, but you just would like to see a little more amplitude. The ridge starts to pop up in the west early next week, but then and it stays there all week. It just kind of gets flattened out a little bit. So what happens is these divers come down. They don't dive down as far south as you would like, and they really don't really amount to too much. So in the meantime, it just basically stays cold and dry. So that part of it is the easy part of this forecast. And when I look at this, at least over the longer haul, it looks like that wants to be the signature because around, if you want to, if this is correct, and I don't know that it is, it tries to pull the trough out, but then it starts to line up another upper low over Hudson Bay that starts to form and maybe wants to come down uh, after. So in other words, a short break. And of course, if there's a short break in this, of course, that's when you see how the big ridge pops up on this. This is what you need it to look like. You get this big ridge that pops up along the west coast into Western Canada. So as a result, then you've got a pretty strong shortwave cutoff low there in Kansas. I don't know if this is going to be real, but my point is that you need to see this kind of amplitude, and you're not really seeing that next week, or at least you're not seeing enough of it. So what you got to hope for is that maybe the models could start coming around to the idea that the ridge in the west will be a little bit stronger and the trough in the east will be a little bit deeper and perhaps even a little bit further to the left, in which case then maybe we could do something with it. But if unless that happens, we're in for a frustrating cold and dry period where snow weenies are going to say that all this cold air was being wasted, and then it'll warm up and rain.
And we all remember December of 1989, a month that was so very, very
Oh,
cold.
it was brutal that month.
And I think there were a couple of chances that we had of big snowfalls, and it never really happened.
Well,
And
we had a 6 to 8 inch snowfall the day after Christmas from a warm front. Okay, I mean literally, it was a warm front that went through. We had a 6 to 8 inch thumping, and after the front went by, the temperatures went up into the 50s, and we never looked back
that was it.
because the next 3 months were a winter time. It was like one of the warmest Januaries, warmest Februarys. I think it was 9 degrees above normal for both January and February, and almost the same for March. So
Yep.
that it could happen that way. It could. So We're going to probably make this a shortish show tonight because of the upcoming holiday. And I know Joe has so much cooking to do. He has to boil, right, Joe? You have a ton of things to do. You have to, you got to boil water. You got to, make a ham
All I
sandwich.
all I know is that just before I came came down here, Renata let me lick the whisk. She's making brownies, and I should have a glass
Oh,
of water too. So
okay. Yeah, I am so proud of myself because I started my prepping on Saturday, and I had to, aside from the food preparations, I had to clean the house and all the rest of it. The last thing I had to do this morning was dress the turkey up, get it ready for the oven, and I did, and I put it in the fridge, and I sat around for the rest of the day with absolutely nothing to do because I got everything finished and everything is clean. The food is all prepped. If you follow me on Facebook, I posted pictures. Actually, you don't even have to do that. If you go to the community section on the channel here, I posted some pictures up this morning, and I even put up a video of uh, of what I was doing. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. So anyway, you're home tomorrow?
I'm home. Cecilia Hernandez. I don't know what you're talking about in terms of prep work. I can tell you that yesterday, the latest I mean, usually we do this at the end of October or the very beginning of November. Yesterday, we finally took down the tomato cages, the big sticks that we use for the tomato plants or whatever. I mean, it was so warm up until fairly recently, and we were still picking tomatoes, cherry tomatoes. So this today, while Renato was inside doing stuff around the house and cooking and whatever, I was outside cleaning the tomato cages off, whisking off the dirt off of the big sticks, and putting them all away. Uh, Finally, the growing season at the Rayos, at least for tomatoes, is over, said and done. And like
Well,
I
I
said, we've
have.
never done it any later than this. This is like I said to her the other yesterday. I said this got to be a record for us. She said, "Yeah, it is. We've never gone this late into November, still picking cherry tomatoes." And there it is, ladies and gentlemen,
That is
Mr.
my.
Mr. Choppy's turkey with, John. I think that bacon is just a little bit on the thick side,
It
though.
is. It's the extra thick. I get the extra thick. It's maple bacon. So my house is going to smell. I love the smell of maple, and it's going to be. I can't wait till maybe by about an hour into this into the oven, the house will have that wonderful maple smell that I cannot. Yes, that's maple bacon. The Can you identify the herb that's that leaf there?
Um, no, what is that?
Okay, that's sage, Joe. That's
Okay,
sage.
all
Okay.
right.
Now, if you look where the bacon is at the top of the turkey, you could see what looks like a little, like a fern sticking out. Do you know what that is?
No, but you're going to tell me, I'm sure.
It's rosemary.
Oh, I knew rosemary
And I
back in.
didn't even think that rosemary would fit underneath all that maple bacon, but she did.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
look at all the people who were able to identify Birder Lady, Anthony, Maggie P, Christopedia, Miss Spalleright. They all knew it was rosemary.
of course it
And
was rosemary.
Vincent Kirby
Now,
said it was Clooney.
okay, now that yellow thing, you see that blob of yellow?
Is that butter?
That
Curry
is
butter?
butter, but it's not. Yeah, it is Irish butter. Okay, it's Irish butter. Um, then underneath that is my because I decided I was going to not stuff the cavity, but I made so much cornbread, sausage, and pecan stuffing that I decided at the last minute to stuff it, to stuff the cavity with it, and I put a big blob of butter there. Plus, underneath the breast, the skin on the breast, I uh, I shoved about half a pound of butter in there. let alone the fact that this thing was has been brining in a red wine brine for 72 hours. Okay, which is why it has that sort of reddish color and it stumbles a bit. All right, but it's been in that red wine brine. Uh, so it's all set to go. All I got to do is pop it in the oven at about 10:30, and it should be ready in time for a 2 o'clock dinner. So that is what I'm up to for
Okay,
tomorrow.
well, we have two turkeys in the refrigerator. I'm not sure which one we're going to use, the butterball or I think it's the butterball because it's more it's fresher according to Mrs. Rayo.
I've never made a butterball.
Okay,
I've always I've always bought a turkey that doesn't have that's not a butterball or a self-basting or anything like that. I like to put all the stuff in myself and and do it by do it my way. Oh, and by the way, in the bottom of the pan is red wine and vegetable stock with cut pieces of celery and carrots and I didn't put any onion in because I got to think I'm like anti-onion.
and
But that's what I did. So anyhow,
how many kids are coming tomorrow?
oh, just three.
Three. Ages?
Oh, 7, 5, and 7. Wait a minute, hold on. Julian is 6, going to be 7. Nolan, Nolan is 5, going to be 6. I think. No, 4 going to be 5, and then the baby's going to be 2 in January.
Now, which one of those three are going to say, I don't want this?
No, you know what? I got to tell you, the last time they were here, I made um, I made salmon, and they loved it.
Okay,
So they're usually when they're here, they try my food, because it's Pop knows how to cook.
okay, good.
All right.
And you'll be
So,
rooting for the Giants tomorrow.
oh, by the way, that reminds me, Sunday night, if it's got this lake effect snow warning, Buffalo is the night game Sunday night in
Oh, that'll be
Buffalo,
fun to watch. That'll
and
be fun to
it's
watch.
televised. I really hope they don't, because when this happened a few years ago, they wound up canceling the game, so we never really got to see them play. And I think the stadium got like 3 or 4 feet of snow anyway, because they wouldn't have been able to play it. But it'll be
I think
interesting to
they,
see if they cancel this game or not, or
I think they
reschedule it.
hired they hired outside people to come to the stadium to try to clear out
Yeah,
the seats and everything. So well, we'll see. It'll be fun if they do it.
yeah.
If they
All
do
right.
do it.
Well, you have a happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I know we had 2 late super chat hits here. We had another one. Let's see. Frank Scalera. Thanks for hitting super chat. Happy Thanksgiving to you, David Fuller. You hit it a second time. Thank you very much for hitting super chat. And of course, earlier we had Ken Musillo and uh, wait a minute, hold on. Wait, Ken Musillo. Where's Quiet John? He was on here and he disappeared. Oh, there he is, Quiet John.
Yes.
So thank you all for the super chat hits tonight. It is most appreciated. I just gave you all big hearts. And we'll see you on Sunday at 7:35.
We'll be here.
All right. Bye bye.